Hello everybody, so my name's Amelia and I'm a second year medical student. So a big misconception when applying to medical school is you need tons and tons and tons of work experience, and that is so far from the truth. What is more important than having tons and tons and tons of work experience is quality work experience, and as they say, it is quality over quantity. It is way more important to have work experience that has taught you a lot and that you've learned from, rather than having lots of it but not learning anything from it. So while that is beneficial, I would not be putting all your focus on trying to find hospital placements where you can shadow doctors. I would be putting your focus on trying to find hands-on work experience. And medical schools completely understand that this is always quite difficult to do in hospital settings, and therefore that is why they are more than happy for you to do work experience in other places, which we are going to mention later on in the video. I am no way, shape or form saying that shadowing doctors or work experience is not beneficial to your application, because it 100% is. However, I am saying do not spend all your time and energy trying to find work experience placements in hospitals and shadowing doctors and doing that kind of thing, because it is not the be all and end all to do. There are other work experiences that are very, very beneficial elsewhere, and it does not have to be in a hospital setting. So let's get into the video. So I'm going to start by talking about the work experience that I had when I applied to medical school, and it feels like such a long time ago now, but let's talk about that. So the first bit of work experience I had is working in a care home. I actually reached out to this home to do work experience. At the time of this, I couldn't do it because of COVID. So then instead I worked smarter and applied for a job there so I could still do the work experience, because obviously during COVID, key workers were essential. So I applied to the care home to work instead of doing voluntary, and I gained my experience through working instead. And honestly, looking back on this work experience, I think out of all the work experiences I have, this was by far the most beneficial one. It was hands-on because obviously I was working there, and that really taught me a lot. It gave me a big insight into medicine in the community, which is definitely a very good insight to have. Obviously you've got hospital doctors, but you also have to have a very good understanding of healthcare in the community. A big skill is being able to understand how conditions affect people and their day-to-day life, and this definitely taught me a lot about that, because obviously I was seeing people living with these comorbidities and these conditions and seeing how it was affecting them. So that was a very valuable work experience to me. Also dealing with vulnerable people, there was very frequent doctor visits, nurse visits, paramedic visits. I did also get to see that side of it as well without directly going into a GP clinic or a hospital clinic. I was still able to shadow doctors and nurses and see them work as well, and see them work together with us. So it was very valuable, and if you have the opportunity to work in a care home or a nursing home or an assisted living unit, definitely wouldn't pass it up, because it teaches you things that shadowing a doctor in a hospital wouldn't be able to teach you, just because of the nature of the work experience. So that is my first work experience. My second work experience was shadowing a nurse in a sexual health clinic, and that was for just one day. I saw a lot of different medical procedures, and obviously that is something that I wouldn't have been able to see in the care home, so it is definitely valuable to see that as well. But after doing both of them, I would say that the care home was more beneficial, taught me more, and I spoke about that more in my interview. I also did a virtual work experience, so I did the Brighton and Sussex Medical School virtual work experience online, and that is free for everybody to use. I also did a research project with my school, and this research project was nothing to do with medicine at all. I think it was something to do with like carbon dioxide emissions. It was like a chemistry topic, and although it wasn't anything medical related, medical schools really like you to have an interest in research, because a lot of doctors go into research, and during your degree you have to do things based on research as well. So they really like to see that you have some sort of insight into research also. I read medical books, and lastly I also helped with a food bank. I volunteered with a food bank, helped gathering food during COVID. I know I started this video by talking about how you don't need tons and tons of work experience, and then I just listed tons and tons of work experience, but I can assure you, you do not need that much work experience at all. Honestly, if you have one or two very good pieces of work experience that have taught you a lot, and you can reflect and explain what you've learned from them, that is more than enough. Obviously, different medical schools have different criteria, so it's very important to check out the specific criteria for the medical schools you want to apply to, but they are also different. Some of them like 2 weeks, some of them like 100 hours, some of them like 200 hours. Some of them have no specific criteria for work experience. So it's just important to have a look into what medical schools want from you and make sure you meet the minimum criteria. All I can say is quality over quantity. That is the most important thing, and that is something you need to make sure you hang on to. So let's move on to my top tips for work experience when getting into medical school. So my first tip would be to make a work experience diary. So every single thing that you come across, write it down, write what you've learned from it, write what you saw, and write how it's inspired you or what it's taught you. This will really do you a massive favour when it comes to writing your personal statement or your interview, because if you do a work experience placement a year before you sit your interview, you're not really going to remember it when it comes to the interview, and therefore it's a massive waste of your time, because if you're not going to remember it, you're not going to be able to use it and benefit from the rewards. My next tip would be to start as early as possible. A lot of placements require you to be a certain age, but there are things that you can be doing when you're younger as well, like 15, whatever. Places will always allow you to volunteer. You can be reading books, you can be doing the virtual online work experiences, and as soon as you're old enough to be able to go in and do physical work experience, get that done too. The application to medical school is stressful enough. Doing the whole application, you're doing the admissions test, and this is all alongside completing your A-levels as well, if you are going straight from school, that is. So make your life easier. Don't all cram it in. Work experience is something that you can do earlier. It's not something that has to be done at the moment of application, like your personal statement, for example. So make your life easier, be organised, and get started as soon as possible to reduce your stress for the future you. My third tip is to think outside of the box. So there's actually so much experience that you have day to day that is relevant to medicine. Things that you won't even think are relevant will be relevant, like your hobbies. They are really big on having a life outside of medicine, so they like to be able to see that you have hobbies and you have a way of de-stressing when life is stressful, and that is often through hobbies and extracurriculars. So definitely don't pass those up. As I said, I did my research project, which was to do with carbon dioxide emissions. Is that directly relevant to medicine? Not really, but I kind of sculpted it about the research aspect and presented it that way. There is so much that is relevant to medicine, but indirectly, and it's just about being smart, thinking outside the box and using it to your advantage. For example, if you're in a football team, that could have taught you dedication, commitment, and team working skills. They are all attributes that they look for in a doctor, so use those to your advantage. My fourth tip is to not pay for work experience. I'm telling you, there is nothing that you can pay for that you can't get for free. A lot of the time, the work experience placements that you pay for are a complete waste of money. Don't waste your money, save your money. There's so many work experiences that you can do for free. There's so many experiences that you probably already have but you don't realise. As I've just said, use them to your advantage. Don't waste your money on work experience. There is no need to do that. And my fifth and final top tip is to make sure you do your research. I have briefly touched on this, so I'm not going to go into it too much, but medical schools all want different things from you. And yes, it makes our lives so much more difficult, but do your research and use that to your advantage. One medical school might ask for 200 hours of work experience. Another one might not have any criteria for how much work experience they want. Make sure you apply to the universities according to their minimum criteria. So let's just briefly touch on some examples of different work experience that you can do. I have touched on some of them, but we'll just give them a quick blast through on different work experiences that you could do or think about doing. So you have the medical work experiences. So these are things like working in your hospital, GPs, clinics, vaccination clinics. Vaccination clinics are actually really, really good to get into because they always are looking for helping hands, meet and greets on the door, showing people to where they need to be, signposting people, giving people water, sitting with people to make sure they're relaxed and their nerves are okay. There's so many different positions and different ways you can help in vaccination programs and vaccination clinics, so definitely have a look at that. St. John's Ambulance is a good one to get work experience as well. They're often taking on people who want to do work experiences. Next is volunteering, so you could volunteer in the hospital, as I've already mentioned, volunteering in care homes and nursing homes, I tell you, they will be more than happy to let you come in and help them. They're always looking for a helping hand. So if you reach out, I'm sure they would be more than happy to let you do some volunteering. Volunteering at food banks or charity shops, even though this is not directly medical work experience, it's still going to teach you communication skills and dealing with people from different backgrounds. That's all valuable work experience. Number 3 is research. Research is so important if you can do it. You don't have to do a whole research project yourself, but just having some sort of insight and some sort of experience with research will definitely take you a long way. As I said, medical schools are suckers for research. They love it. They love to see that you have an interest in research, because research is a big part of medicine and a big part of your medical school journey. So if you can show that you've took an interest in that from early on, that is definitely something good to be able to talk about in your personal statement and your interview. Next is online or virtual. I've mentioned Brighton and Sussex Medical School. They have a really good work experience course that you can do online that is completely free. I've heard that Observe GP is also a good one, or even things like reading books, such a simple but effective way to gain some sort of insight into what medicine is like. Email is the best way to get in touch with people regarding work experiences. Go into your GP surgeries, your local GP surgeries, ask if they've got any place for work experience there, ask for the emails of the doctors, pop them an email, ask if you can shadow them for the day or for the week or whatever. Doctors are more than happy to help. It doesn't even have to be doctors as well. You can learn so much from nurses, you can learn so much from working behind a reception in a GP clinic. There's so much that can be learned. It doesn't have to be directly shadowing doctors. Medical schools really like you to have an insight into the multidisciplinary teams that make up the NHS. So that will work in your favour as well, even if it's not directly shadowing a doctor. Volunteering in the hospital, that's often a great way to actually get into shadowing a doctor if that is something you want to do. Speaking to friends of friends, often it's not about what you know, it's about who you know. So if you know somebody that is a receptionist in the hospital, for example, they might have connections and be able to get you into shadowing a doctor. If you know medical students that are in medical school now but started off in the school or village you live in, use that to your advantage. Pop them a message, ask if they have any connections of doctors or anybody they know that would be happy to let you shadow them. So I think that is it for this video. I think I've covered everything that I was wondering about when I was applying to medical school. But if I've missed anything, or if you're still a little bit confused about anything, pop me a message down below in the comments. Thank you so much for watching this video. I really hope you've enjoyed it, and I really hope it's been helpful. If it has been helpful, I would really love it if you would like and comment down below and subscribe to my channel. Thank you so much once again, and I shall see you in the next one.